So now I'm pleased to hand things over to my fabulous colleague, Rita Solórzano. Rita is a speech language pathologist with over 30 years of experience, and she was also one of the original employees of Floreo. So she has some really fabulous experience using Floreo clinically, and I am so excited to hear her presentation today. So Rita, take it away.
Thanks so much, Heather. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Glad you could join us. I'm going to start sharing my screen from here. There we go. All right, today's presentation is a Floreo for SLPs. It's actually a follow-up presentation from a webinar that I did last fall that I could really only have time to focus on the language comprehension elements of our profession. So today I wanted to circle back and see if we could fill out the expressive language components of how Floreo works. So this webinar is well suited to speech language pathologists and SLPAs, anybody who might be using virtual reality or interested in using virtual reality in their sessions. I'm going to give some very brief background information about how Floreo works. In the past, on the past webinar, I gave some information about how speech language therapy works. We will send a few different links to you all or put it in the description of the YouTube submission when this goes up on YouTube, so that if you needed to or wanted to, you could go back and review that particular webinar. And in this webinar, I may be referring to someone who wears the VR headset, either as a client or a student or a child, an individual, or a learner. So I circle back to this rubric for simplicity's sake. When we talk about speech language pathology, oftentimes we talk about listening, reading, talking, writing. In this webinar, of course, we're going to be focused on the talking, writing components. So if you're brand new to Floreo, the way Floreo works is there is a learner wearing a virtual reality headset, and they're transported, whoops, sorry about that. They're transported to a new location. Maybe it's a grocery store, maybe it's a classroom, maybe it's a safari. And there's a clinician nearby, a coach. Actually, we've had other people, paraprofessionals, use it, parents use it, different kinds of professionals use Floreo. They can see on that iPad what the student is seeing in the headset. They also, the view at the bottom here is what the learner would be, what the coach would be looking at. Between the two green lines is what the learner can see, but the coach can see a little bit to the left and right of that. They also get a dashboard with instructions in that blue banner that runs across the middle of the screen. And there are buttons that will update at the bottom so that the coach can run the lesson. It's probably longer than 15 seconds, but on we go. So the in the area of talking, and for this webinar, this is going to cover anything that falls under in the moment expressive communication. So whether it's speech or whether it's use of an AAC device or whether it's even a gesture or an action to communicate in the moment, that to differentiate it from written communication, which is static and survives past the particular moment. So under talking, we're going to talk about expanding somebody's vocabulary. And there's some interesting information on the relationship between expressive vocabulary and gestural communication. Research that was done with autistic kids published back in 2019. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about social expression because that's sort of the bread and butter of the Floreo content. And we're going to talk about how self-talk is important for executive functioning skills. So when I was looking at this particular content for vocabulary expansions, certain themes in vocabulary started becoming apparent to me as I was looking through the content. So we categorize our content for developing a particular skill, but we don't have anything that's we have a little bit that's specific to vocabulary in a very narrow window, but there are actually a lot of different other opportunities that you can use to look for themes across the lessons. So for example, because transportation tends to be a popular theme among growing youth, I was looking at all the lessons where you could see elements of transportation. So for example, in the Listen and Find series, we see Emma in the back of the truck. The learner is seated in the back of the truck. And so there's that element, the truck element. In our, Emma also appears in the truck in a few other lessons, most of which fall under the communicative eye gaze skill category. We have 6 lessons dedicated to finding the correct bus and problem solving around when something unexpected happens. So buses obviously appear in all of those lessons. And after I put this slide together, it occurred to me that there are also buses and trucks in the Choose Your Police Encounter lesson as well. There are there are several lessons that feature trains, which is also a favorite of kiddos we work with. I chose the spatial concepts left and right because the trains are coming from either from the left and going to the right, or coming from the right and going to the left. But there are 3 different styles of trains in that particular lesson, and so those can be really fun for students. The other train lessons are breathing train and watch the train. And then, of course, we have a series, I think we're up to 9 street crossing based lessons. And at least 8 of them have cars in them. Actually, maybe 7 of them have cars in them. Some of the early ones we take away the cars because we just want the learner to focus on the routine of crossing the street. As I was looking through this, it also occurred to me that there are people involved with these transportation related lessons. And so there's, for example, a bus driver on the bus. There are security officers, TSA officers in the airport to check your ID and to help you move through the security line, getting through the airport. You can differentiate the security officer from the traveler in this picture. Hopefully you can see that because the security officer is wearing a uniform, whereas the traveler is wearing street clothes. And opportunities to talk about, well, how would you recognize someone as a security officer, or as a police officer, or as somebody who works in a grocery store? Our grocery store workers wear an apron. So the idea of wearing a particular item of clothing to help identify somebody as a particular profession, this allows also for the opportunity not only just to do the naming of truck, bus, train, but also to describe why these, the description of the vocabulary as well. So I wanted to play this particular set of lessons because this just showcases different environments in in a school setting. So there's tons of vocabulary here that can be addressed. Things like bookcases, posters, desks, blackboards and whiteboards, smart boards, recycling bins. We've got lockers and exit signs. We have classroom rules and telephones. And I think that there's a globe back there on the shelf in the back of the classroom, not to mention the students. Here we have a kindergarten-based classroom, and kindergartens typically have areas that get have a particular name, so that you could adapt the name to the learner who is in a particular classroom. And instead of lockers, we have cubbies. There's a microscope over there, and we do eventually have people that arrive in the classroom as well. Here's the school hallway. Again, we highlight the lockers and the books, classroom doors, other students, the bulletin boards, more opportunities to be able to generalize vocabulary to different places. That's a water fountain that the boy is standing in front of, and a clock over there. So again, we're sort of focusing on the naming elements here. The counter, the food counter, the menu, a peer or a friend who you're having lunch with, a lunch buddy, more bulletin boards, etc. I'm going to go to the next slide. Oops. Oh, I think I've got it. Sorry. Technical difficulties. All right, so here we have the theme of action words. So you don't want to just be naming, identifying nouns necessarily as you're picking up vocabulary. You also want to have some verbs in there too, so that you can begin to create phrases. So Floreo has a number of verbs. This is one of my favorites because we start with jumping, we move to climbing, we can differentiate climbing up from climbing down, and then clapping, making stars, and rolling. We can also talk about the sounds we're hearing. The chimp is barking. Now the bird is jumping, flying, more jumping. And so this, of course, would be for somebody who was really working on some basic skills in terms of just finding that new vocabulary. More jumping or dancing, walking, etc. I'm going to skip ahead here. Here we go. So these are also some simple actions that we can trigger a character to do, and ask if we turn down the sound and we repurpose this lesson, we can have the learner identify what action he's committing, what action he is performing. Sorry. So, you know, things like pat knees or waving or spinning. If we tap good job, we do get that reinforcement, but we could also just tap skip and then provide reinforcement some other way. Here the action is the cars are moving versus when the light changes, the cars stop. We see that the cars stop on the left and the cars stop on the right.
Welcome, friend. Let's do some stretching and breathing to help relax your body and mind.
So here we have some more actions that are related to the yoga scenes. So in these lessons, the character is describing the action to the learner and modeling it for them. But if we can turn the table and have the learner, again, turn down the sound, the learner then describes the action and perhaps is in the art and describing it to some other fellow classmates. And so it becomes a little bit of a barrier game that that you can play to see if the learner will be able to describe a particular action using the correct vocabulary. So we're going to look at star posture here.
It's time for half moon stretches.
Oh, sorry, half moon
stretches. First to the
stretches.
right and then to the left. Take a deep breath and lift your right arm over your head like this. Place your hand on your ear, take another deep breath, and gently move your ear down to your right shoulder for a gentle stretch.
So you may or may not get the breathing dialogue, and that's okay in this instance if what you're doing is just trying to build up the learner's vocabulary to be able to create these instructions that they're seeing. Let's take a look at. So the next vocabulary theme is spatial concepts. So we do have some content here that is for around spatial concepts that's under a skill category called descriptive language. And these are pretty simple ones. The first two are up and down, the second two are in and out, and then the third two are left and right. That's where the different trains come in. The one that I really like is the spatial concepts, where is the train? Because the train goes between the trees, it goes under the bridge, it goes near the waterfall, it goes behind the station, it goes into the tunnel, it comes out of the tunnel. And in the spatial concepts, where's the train, it's designed as a listening comprehension type of lesson, where there is a voiceover that announces where the train is and a little sign that lights up. But we have almost the exact same lesson in Watch the Train, and if the learner can remember all of the different spatial concepts in Where's the Train, they can then apply it to Watch the Train and be able to describe where the train is at any given moment in Watch the Train. Okay, moving forward, looking at science and nature as a vocabulary theme.
The ocean, a world where mysteries and creatures beyond our imaginations live. Oceans are huge. Did you know that oceans cover about 71% of the Earth's surface? The world's oceans are divided into 4 distinct regions: the Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, and Arctic Oceans. Welcome to the breathtaking world beneath the waves. Under the water, it's a whole different world, full of colorful fish and plants. Spinner dolphins play, enjoying the sunshine filtering through the water. These dolphins leap out of the water and spin very fast before splashing back down. Spinner dolphins are found in tropical and subtropical waters around the world. They prefer warm coastal waters and are often found near islands, reefs, and continental shelves. They use clicks, whistles, and body movements to communicate to each other.
So this, of course, is content for somebody who might be on a more traditional academic track and might be participating in science class for their age level. And so there's a lot of vocabulary that can be pulled out of here that can be both addressed from a listening comprehension point of view, or be adapted to use definitions. What does continental shelf mean? What does filter mean? And pulling out those words from some of these lessons can be really helpful for that language, vocabulary expansion, as I should say.
See those rocks? They're actually coral homes. Lots of sea creatures live there, like tiny fish and crabs. Coral reefs are important for the health of the ocean and the planet. They provide food and shelter. Chimps are well known for crafting and using tools such as twigs to catch insects. But did you know that they also have their own medicine? It is mostly preventive, as they include certain plants in their daily diet in order not to get sick. If that happens, they know what to eat to get rid of parasites or a fever. Chimpanzees aren't the only species that do this. Such behavior has even inspired an entire field of scientific research called zoopharmacognosy. It aims to discover new molecules by observing how animals heal themselves. Our chimpanzee friends can thus be guides in the search for new medicine.
So, obviously, the giants of the sea and the chimp are two different lessons. The chimp lesson takes about a minute and a half. The giants of the sea runs closer to between 5.5 and 6 minutes. So they can be of different lengths, and you can introduce them in a way that provides a relatively small snippet of content, but one that's really rich. And so the chimp lesson is one of my favorites because it's where I learned the term zoopharmacognosy, which of course has Latin roots in zoo, which means animal, cog, which means know, and then an ending zoopharmacognosy, and that word is really related to how animals know what plants to eat to keep them healthy. So I thought that was really fascinating and a wonderful opportunity. But it also reminded me of our lesson that is somewhat geared toward individuals who might have some impulse control issues in the classroom, where they might enjoy sharing their ideas about what is the topic at hand, and not necessarily give other people turns. But we do have this content on root words that focuses on looking at a root word, considering what the root might mean based on the three different words that you're seeing, and then seeing if you can come up with a word of your own that has that same meaning. So I'm going to just play a little bit of this lesson for you. And in this case, everybody's going to get everything almost right. So the learner has a worksheet in front of them with with information about the root words and the meaning of the root words, and then we have the questions and what is considered the correct answer for the root word for the question. All right, the coach says the teacher's going to
Everyone look at me.
ask you some questions. First, she gives
All right,
her attention.
let's get started. What's the common root of all these words and what does it mean? Non-fiction, non-fat, and non-existent.
So everybody raises their hand, and let's say the learner raises their hand too. The teacher calls on Brandon.
Non means without.
That's not quite right.
Not quite.
So the learner looks at the sheet, realizes the answer
What's
is
the
not.
common root of all these words and what does it mean? Non-fiction, non-fat, and non-existent.
This time the teacher's going to call on the learner.
Non means not.
Answered correctly.
Non means not. What other words start with non?
Okay, so you get the idea there.
The ocean. A world.
Apologies. All right, another vocabulary theme that is food related.
The ocean.
Oh dear.
A world where...
Oop. Okay, that's the wrong video, but I'll just explain what's supposed to be going on there. So we have a few different lessons that focus on, have food categories in them. One of the most robust ones is the grocery store, where you have the entire grocery store at your disposal. The learner goes into the grocery store and can travel to the various sections of the grocery store. We ask them to identify some of the items that they see there so that they begin to develop a semantic map around, for example, bagels and baguettes going together. And we ask them to identify the section of the grocery store, which is the bakery section. And so again, we build this, these links between the items in the grocery store as well as the items that are the category name. Next, I want to highlight the movie theater. The movie theater, you're standing in one place, but you're surrounded by the movie theater concession items. And so the idea is to look at the different items and consider what category they might be in. So for example, if you look at the overhead price list, the price, there's a price for candy, and there are, you get to stock the ZZs and all the different types of candy, but it doesn't say candy anywhere on the particular items themselves. So you begin to develop the names of those particular fun items and understand what category they fit under. The same with drinks or Slurpees, slushies, I think we use, and flavor names as well. And then the third one is a kitchen where the learner is putting food away in a specific category. So you become more and more familiar with the food items, and those items have labels on top of them. So,
the ocean.
Yep. There we go. So moving on, the understanding and using gestures comes from a series of, started with a series of those first 4 lessons that were designed to support learners with limited communication skills. So The idea was you're both working on operating within a group, and as well as using gestural communication within that group. Because they're based on a play narrative, I also like to refer people to these lessons for those kiddos who are more verbally fluent, but don't necessarily know how to use that play language. So, for example, in Whose Turn Is It to Push? If you know the character's name, James, we've got James, Brandon, and May in here, and they recur in various lessons of ours. You can say someone who's not speaking might just point to a character and tell them that or to indicate that it's their turn. But someone who is more verbally fluent might point to May and say, May, it's your turn. And then when the May goes over to the elephant to push the elephant on the swing, they might use language like ready, set, go, or 1, 2, 3, go, those kinds of play-based verbal skills. What's interesting is there's more and more research coming out about gestural communication in the, especially in the autistic community. So this study, this 2019 study that I cited down here at the bottom, the examination of the relationship between gestures and vocabulary in children with autism spectrum disorder at different language stages. So the study looked at 72 children with ASD at different stages, and they found a correlation between the use of gestures and the growth of their vocabulary. So the correlation wasn't across the board. It was specific to declarative deictic gestures. So the gesture, the pointing gesture, which means I want to show you something, it was not correlated with the imperative deictic gesture, which is the pointing gesture, which means I want that. And we tend to know that that imperative deictic gesture in the autistic children often supersedes the showing gesture. The other type of gesture it correlated with is pantomime. So we also have a pushing gesture, the 1, 2, 3, go. You could be using a more verbally fluent person could be using 1, 2, 3, go, and using the gesture by counting with their fingers, or they might somebody might be using the pantomime of push to indicate, okay, it's time to push. Okay. All right, so as I mentioned, this social expression and conversation is really our bread and butter in Floreo, and we've really filled out from some really early skills to really advanced skills throughout the scope and sequence of our curriculum. We have lessons that just focus on a friendly greeting or just focus on an unfriendly greeting. So, and we put those greetings, we can look at those greetings individually, and then we can put them in lessons like choose your greeting or greetings in motion, and have the characters move along and the learner has to respond in real time. We move on to finding a topic. I'm going to talk about that next. We go to a quick comment in our small talk series. Then we move on to reciprocal conversations and asking questions. So reciprocal conversations are in our chit chat lessons. And then we learn to ask questions in the social squares questions. And then for learners 13 and above, we have these open-ended conversations in the AI-based lessons, the conversation corner lessons. So I'm going to take you through the idea of joining a conversation. First, I'm going to show it to you how it's designed, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you could introduce it, measure it, and then fade the prompting on it. Let's practice joining a conversation. First, listen for the topic.
I just saw a real cool movie last night.
I love a good comedy.
I've seen the movie Spider-Man like 19 times.
Yes, I know what they're talking about.
I'm going to see a movie with my big brother this weekend.
Make a comment to keep the conversation going. I built a Lego set last night. They're confused. They thought you were going to talk about movies. Do you want to try again? Yes. I saw the movie Barbie for the 3rd time last weekend.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Okay, so when you're introducing that particular lesson, you might either use it straight to see if the learner is able to stay on topic without any intervention. And you might even remove some of the banners. You might remove the make a comment. Because what happens at that moment is all the characters look at the learner in an expectant way. If you needed to introduce prompts, you might consider where you would need to introduce prompts. One place might be to start by just letting the learner know what the topic of conversation is. So in this case, you might say, all right, we're going to talk about movies today. Let's listen, and then begin that series of conversations. There are up to 11 different conversations, so you can mix and match, but and provide different conversations for the learner to try out. So once you feel like the learner might be listening for the topic of conversation, you can teach them how to listen for the keywords in the conversation that is going on. Sometimes that might have to take place outside of VR. So what I like to do is present a written sentence and think about the words that you can make pictures out of. So you can make a picture out of Spider-Man. You can make a picture out of movie. You can make a picture out of Saw. You could theoretically even make a picture out of favorite, but you can't really get a picture of is. That particular lesson offers pauses after each comment so that you can help the learner find the keywords in real time if they're able to do so. And when you get to the point where it's the learner's turn to talk, be sure to point out how their physical orientation is cueing that learner that it's her turn. And then at this point, the learner may or may not need support in formulating the conversation. Sometimes you can just say, hey, what's your favorite movie? Or you can try, tell the kids, my favorite movie is blank, and then move from there. So that's one way you could consider fading the prompting and then reintroducing different conversations, not repeating the same one so many times that they understand it by rote, but rather that they're finding the topic of conversation themselves. And that's a pretty early skill in the scope and sequence. We do move on to, as I said, more chit chat. Sometimes they know the topic but don't know how to respond. And so you can use some of those chit chat lessons and the lessons on asking questions are super important in conversations as well. One topic I want to touch on briefly is this notion of self-talk. So as we mature and get older, we're often using self-talk, and it really supports our executive functioning. It helps us focus. So if you're walking into a room and you suddenly don't know why you're standing there, you might even say out loud, "What did I come in here to get?" If you're trying to remember a phone number, you might be repeating it to yourself over and over again, exercising your auditory working memory. And it's extremely important in self-regulation when you're just saying to yourself, okay, just take a breath, stop and breathe, we can move on from here. So, the people that I worry about or consider with self-talk are those individuals who don't necessarily get that experience as their language is developing. So particularly those individuals who are non-speaking or using phrase level language or word level language, and they don't really have that opportunity. So we as support for them need to be that voice for them, probably for longer than you would expect to need to be that support for somebody. And so if we can provide that support, what I try to do is provide language at a level that they might be using. So if it's someone's using single word speech, I might just say breathe or remember, breathe, and really shorten the phrase. But I also like to pair it with a longer phrase that conveys that, if I'm working with somebody, conveys that I think I might know what they're feeling. And overinterpretation is a little bit of a tricky spot here, because you don't want to overinterpret somebody's feeling. At the same time, you want to be able to show compassion for what they might be feeling if they are feeling dysregulated. So being able to say with compassion, "Oh yeah, I know that must be disappointing." That kind of thing, missing the bus, yeah, that can get really disappointing. And so being able to formulate that kind of language for individuals can be helpful in helping them self-regulate. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about writing. And this is a much shorter area within Floreo, because we don't have any content that addresses writing at all. But I can see opportunities for practicing spelling, practicing different kinds of sentences, writing different kinds of sentences, as well as narrative writing of passages. So for a spelling lesson, I would want to dip into one of these lessons that just has a lot of background items. Spelling, you really want to find a spelling pattern, especially for somebody who might be struggling with this. You want to find a spelling pattern that you're looking for. So you might go into the grocery store, for example, and say, okay, we're going to find all the foods. We're going to find 10 foods that start with the sound P, indicated by the letter P as in paper. And then go around and see if you can find peanuts and popcorn and paper towels, that kind of thing. And so that's at a really early level of spelling. You might come out of the lesson and practice spelling some of those words. The airport scene is also a really good one. It has a lot of images in the background that you can find. It might be a little bit harder to find a theme, but essentially, if you look for those lessons that have many items in the area, those are going to be your best bet for spelling. And then at the sentence writing level, we've got declarative sentences. We can start with simple declarative sentences based on those. Can you describe those actions? So things like the bird is flying, the giraffe is jumping, and being able to use those carrier phrases to practice writing at the sentence level. Teen Talk Social Squares is good for asking questions and perhaps writing questions. A lot of language delayed individuals have difficulties figuring out how to manage how to transfer from a statement to a question. One of the references that I will often use in therapy is one called Teaching Kids of All Ages to Ask Questions. And it's a Marilyn Toomey book, Toomey. And I will send out a reference to this as well. And what I like to do with this particular resource, it shows you how you can just, if you take a sentence and put each word on a card, there are times when you can just transfer words and generate a question. And generating questions, of course, is really good for passage writing, because when you go into these nature lessons and you figure out, you listen to the topic, but it might generate a question that you have, then that then can become a writing prompt for a longer passage. So those were my thoughts on writing and talking and other types of expressive language targets. Thank you so much for your kind attention. I'm wondering if there are any questions now.
There are a couple of questions in the Q&A, and for those of you who are with us live, feel free to continue putting your questions into the Q&A. And a reminder too that if you have questions after the call, you can always reach out to us at support@floreovr.com and we'll be happy to answer them. And you will also receive this recording after the call too. So starting off, Rita, here's an easy one for you. Does Floreo have VR content in Spanish?
Not yet. We are very much hoping that will be one of the next languages. But yeah, at this point, we haven't had the resources to devote to a Spanish translation yet. We do have a character named Carlos.
Right now, Floreo is only available in English and Arabic. So if you're looking for those languages, we definitely have content that can help. And then another question, someone's asking for pricing for a clinic. The best thing for you to do is actually to reach out to us, like I said, support@floreovr.com. We'll want to introduce you to a member of our sales team who can work with you to find the best program and subscription for your needs. They'll be able to talk about pricing with you and find the best fit for you. So I definitely recommend that you reach out to us and we can connect you with the right person. And another question, Rita, I'm going to toss this one to you too. It's an easy one too. Is Floreo available in the UK?
Yes, yes, it is.
Yes, it is. So if you are a clinic or a school interested in purchasing Floreo, you can reach out to us at support@floreovr.com. And I'll spell it because someone's asking to show the email. It's SUPPORT@FLOREOVR.com. Hope I spelled it right, Rita.
I was monitoring, yeah.
Any other questions that Rita can answer today? And Rita, thanks so much for being so generous with your time and your wisdom. And thank you everyone who joined us today for taking the time out of your busy day to spend some time with Floreo.
Adding my thanks in too.
And I don't see any other questions in the Q&A now. So signing off here from Floreo. And thank you all again for joining us. And we hope to see you at a webinar in the future.
Bye.
Bye.